Today, we're going to talk about something that affects all of us. Okay. So, whether you realize it or not, your energy field is constantly interacting with the world around you. Okay. So, you have your own energy field, but so does everybody else's, and they're constantly bumping into each other. They're impacting each other positively and negatively, depending on your own state, your own emotions at the time, and how impacted and permeable you are to other situations. Now, for people who don't quite understand how this is practically relevant, I'm going to take you through a whole bunch of different scenarios today to explain to you why energy protection is so important, how it can impact you depending on the situation, and what you can do about it. So tune in.
You're listening to the Intuitive Mastery Podcast. Hi, I'm Kate Connolly, and with over 15 years of intuitive healing and teaching experience, I'm here to help you celebrate intuition and value authenticity to create a world where you have the freedom to live your best life. This podcast is here to teach you how to apply the principles of spirituality, healing, and mindset to have true and lasting joy, all from the inside out. This is the Intuitive Mastery Podcast.
Okay, welcome to my Intuitive Mastery podcast. And in this particular episode, and in most of my episodes, what I'm trying to do and help you with is marry our real life, practical, go, go, go worlds with spirituality and connection and 5D awareness. And why do we want to do this? Because ultimately, we are spiritual beings in physical bodies. We have the capacity to deal with life in a very powerful, very intentional way. If we can be mindful and intentional with our thoughts, with our emotions, with our behaviors, with our relationships, with our work, we can be in a much more high vibrational, balanced, joyful, healthy state than if we were to just kind of wander through life relatively blindly. And one of the reasons why I find this so important is because I see how beneficial and how powerful being able to marry spiritual and energetic awareness is to normal everyday life. Okay. So we're all busy. We have stuff to do. We have, work to go to, and maybe kids and partners and friends and functions and appointments and all of these things that day to day, right? And the day to day is stuff that basically takes up 80% of our waking moments. And we also have this other side to us, which is spiritual. It is energetic. It is connected to the earth. It's connected to source. We have this part of us that, for the most part, we neglect. And if we don't neglect it and we learn about it, we very often can't then integrate it into our day to day, right? So, for example, in my Intuitive Mastery School, which everyone is welcome to join because it is probably, I think, one of the best ways that we can marry these two together, like bring in our spiritual world into the practical life so that we can actually function in the best and highest possible way that we can. But I'm noticing even in my in my Intuitive Mastery School, we often learn and understand the techniques, and everyone is getting much better at bringing into life. But I think sometimes we just need to kind of go over how practical this energy stuff really is. All right. And I've been playing with this for years and years and years. And I give people tips and hints all the time, my clients, my kids. I do it with myself. The energetics of situations is literally the difference between coping and functioning and thriving and being overwhelmed and exhausted and giving up. Okay. I've actually got a very good friend who started a very stressful new job, new career, basically. And she has a boss who's also quite a bully. And when I tune into her higher, soul contract here and what potentially can unfold for her, it's really good things, like really good things. And as a person, she's also got a lot of steps to take between the person that she is and the person that she wants to become. And we all have this with every single new thing that we try, right? Every single new goal we want to create, we have a bunch of steps and transformations that we have to do as humans to match that new way of being, right? We have to change energetically, emotionally, physically in order to be that new person. And the energetics of that become essential because if we can't match our energetics with our situation, we end up feeling quite split. We end up feeling unwell, stressed, overwhelmed, anxious, name your thing there. When we have that separation, it's actually really, really, really hard to make those transformations with any level of ease. And this is why most of us give up trying to be different, right? Apart from the fact that our mindsets and our subconscious minds are trying to kind of keep us safe and keep us, in the past and, where we don't have to change, that's a whole kind of science in and of itself. And we can be playing with that, absolutely. And if we understand energy and if we understand how we are impacted by it, then we do actually have the capacity to change it. And I wanted to kind of go through a few different scenarios with you today where you can see very clearly how a real life situation has an energetic undertone and component to it. Because if you can understand that, then you can also understand how changing and tweaking things energetically can make a huge difference to how you show up in a situation and how you can cope with the situation. So, my friend who started this job, she was doing really well for the first week or two, and I'd already tuned in for her with this job before she even started it. I'd already tuned into her guides and tuned into the new workplace, and I knew that the workplace was going to be really hard. And I knew that she was going to feel extremely challenged. I knew that she'd want to give up. I knew that she'd want to quit. And I also saw as she moved through it that she'd actually really thrive and just become this incredible, confident, much more aligned version of herself, which is kind of what she's looking for. And so in the first couple of weeks, she's like, "This is amazing. I'm so happy. I'm having such a good time." And I'm like, okay, maybe I was wrong. And then 2 weeks later, she's like, "Oh my gosh, I hate it. I need to quit." And when we tuned into her at that moment in time, she had a whole bunch of energy stuff that she could do, and we talked through it and she did it, and she said, "Oh my goodness, it makes such a difference. I can actually function and I can breathe and I can think and I feel a lot better." It's still going to be challenging, absolutely, because she's still transforming into the different versions of herself. She's still changing her subconscious mindset. She's still working through emotions. She's still dealing with different things that she needs to kind of work through in order to move into that version of herself. But the energy work in the meantime is an absolute lifesaver because then she gets the opportunity to step into it with more ease. Okay, so this is where energy work is so powerful. Okay, intentions, decisions, behaviors, and energy, those are the things that tend to kind of, when you combine them, really help to create a massive shift. Okay, so I've got a few scenarios here for you. I want to take you through them because um, if we understand in the real world, in real world time, what might actually impact our energy and how it's impacted and why, then we can actually start to understand how important this energy stuff really is. Okay, so number one scenario, the overwhelmed empath. Okay, so this is 90% of people who come to see me, but also a lot of people who join my intuitive mastery school because ultimately people who are energy sensitive, people who are already spiritual, people that are struggling with a lot of social interactions or high level emotion or really kind of intense spaces, if they can learn how to manage their energy, if they can learn how to heal whatever's kind of creating issues within them, then they can actually navigate and function infinitely better than without it. Okay. So the overwhelmed empath, you walk into a room and instantly you feel completely drained. It might be a tense workplace, a chaotic home, or a busy supermarket. Okay, any of those three. You were fine before, but now you feel heavy, anxious, and exhausted, and you don't know why. Okay. Why this happens is because as an empath, you are absorbing other people's energy. Okay. Without protection, you don't realize what's yours and what belongs to other people. And then you end up carrying and being overburdened by things that don't actually belong to you. And that can be incredibly draining and exhausting. Okay, so scenario two, the exhausted parent. It's at the end of the day, you feel completely done. Your kids have been pulling out your energy all day. Tantrums, school runs, constant demands. You love them, but you are running on empty. Why? Right? Why? Because parenting is very, very energy intensive, and kids are naturally energy vampires. And I say that with love. I have four of them, but they are natural energy vampires. And the reason they are is because they are still, especially in that first 7 years of life, they still desperately need you as their anchor into safety and security and their sense of self, right? They still don't see you as completely separate from themselves until they're seven. So, especially in that first 7 years, they are needing your energy all the time. Now, not only are they pulling your energy, but you as a person also have to stay balanced, present, and calm. Okay. Now, all of those things require energy balancing within yourself, within the situation, and then holding space for them if they are not in a good place. Okay. That is exhausting. Okay. I love parenting, and that is extremely exhausting. Okay. It is so important as a parent to be able to hold your energy first, recenter, reground, look after yourself, and then show up for your kids. And then at the end of the day, when you're done with the parenting, try and find a way to disconnect and release all of the tension or anything that you've been holding that you have then taken on as your own to deal with. Okay. And this is a really tricky one for emotionally sensitive parents because they then often try to fix their kids' issues for them rather than holding a loving space and letting them do it for themselves. Age dependent, obviously, age dependent. But the energy required is pretty massive, and physically and energetically, we need to be looking after ourselves really, really well to be able to hold that space. Okay, scenario three, the stressed out professional. Okay. So you're in back-to-back meetings, you're absorbing everyone's stress, and by the time you get home, you feel completely emotionally drained, like you have nothing left to give. Okay. Now, a lot of reason why this happens in office environments is because they hold a lot of unspoken tension and unexpressed emotion. Okay. And this, I think, is probably one of the biggest downsides of modern office environments, is because they're still highly masculine. And there's nothing wrong with the masculine. The masculine is very, very powerful, and it gets things done and it holds beautiful energy. So, zero issues with the masculine. But if it's 100% masculine or 90% masculine and there's no balance with the feminine, and that is, being able to hold space for yourself and others, being able to express emotion, being able to speak your truth, being able to be yourself, being able to be aligned with the work that you're doing. All of those things are very feminine concepts. And without them, it can actually be incredibly difficult to navigate modern office environments. And as a result, you can actually feel extremely drained because you're not only having to deal with different versions of yourself, which in and of itself is exhausting. Like if you internally feel this opinion over here, but at work you have to do that opinion over there, over time that becomes quite exhausting because you're not aligned with it, right? If you are having to deal with someone else's very, very stressed behavior in the next office, like my friend, you are going to really struggle to then manage your own energy and manage your own space because you're constantly having to band-aid or help or work through other people's stuff. So it's really important in these situations in the office to be able to take time out when you need. All right. I have said to many, many people, the office bathroom can be your sanctuary. Go in, breathe, release any emotions that are not yours. You can do power poses, you can reset your energy, you can do whatever you need, but resetting regularly during the day at work can be the difference between you struggling and not coping and you actually being okay and potentially even thriving in very stressful situations. Okay, scenario number 4 is the social hangover. The social hangover is if you love socializing, but even if you have a great time, even if you enjoy spending time with your friends, you usually wake up feeling really exhausted and drained the next day or even at the end of the night. Now, there's a number of reasons why that might happen. You might just be an introvert, which means you get more energy from spending time on your own than spending time with others. But typically, it's also an energy problem. All right. So, the energy problem is if you're going to 3 or 4 different places, each place has its own kind of energy signature, different people, different experiences. And also, just to note, a really important aspect is alcohol and drugs. Now, anytime you take something that is going to alter your state, alter your energy, alter your emotions, it does impact your energy field. It does impact how you are impacted by others, and it can actually be quite an interesting experience. So, when people go into really bad experiences while taking alcohol and drugs, it's usually an energetic problem. They've opened up an energetic portal or an emotional kind of invitation to a situation or a thing. Now, I'm not saying that anything bad that will ever happen to you is your fault. Definitely not. Never saying that, would never say that. Don't believe that. Okay. However, when we have our energy fields impacted by alcohol or drugs, it can change our environment, it can change what we attract, it can change our energy. So, this is going to be impacting you if after you've done that, you feel really drained, you feel overwhelmed, you feel exhausted, you might feel anxious. It might take you several more days to get over it versus somebody else. You might feel like your energy is just drained and you've got nothing left in the tank. Just trying to think. You also might feel sick, you might feel out of sorts. And the other thing that I find really interesting in these situations is that you might actually have thought patterns or emotions or these feelings in your body that you wouldn't normally have. They don't feel like they belong to you. You've never had them before, and it's only happened after a certain situation. Okay. So those kind of situations are much more likely to be there because you've been interacting with energy that doesn't belong to you, and you've inadvertently picked up stuff, thoughts, feelings, emotions, energies that you have then taken on as your own and you believe are your issue, but they're actually not. Okay, so this is the social aspect. That can also just come from spending time with friends. If a friend has a certain energy, you might have picked up on that. If you have been around a lot of different spaces, and you haven't been very grounded and you haven't particularly kind of been very mindful, which is what most of us, most of the time, let's be honest, you're going to feel that. Your energy field will feel that. Your body will feel that. Your emotions will feel that. And it's not don't do it and it's not don't go have fun. But if we know that we are energetically sensitive, if we know there are certain situations and environments that are going to drain our energy, well, let's just protect our energy. Let's just do something about it so that we can go and have those experiences, have a really good time, and then not end up exhausted at the end. That's what this podcast is all about, right? It's just being aware and mindful of the certain situations that can arise, not to not do them, but to absolutely empower yourself to deal with it differently. Okay. So, number 5, scenario number 5 is the draining relationship. Okay. You have a certain friend, family member, or coworker who always leaves you feel exhausted after talking to them. Okay. So, this is usually the realm of the energy vampire. Now, if you are around someone who is an energy vampire, it basically means that they are consciously or unconsciously, and in my experience, it's mostly unconsciously, pulling your energy from you. Okay. Now, these people feel really full on typically, like they're kind of in your face. They want your attention. They want something from you, like the energy that I'm throwing into the screen. I don't know if you can feel that, but it's like it's a full on in your face, like you've got to have my attention, right? And that can be really, really overwhelming. So typically for people who are dealing with that, their response is to pull their energy right back. So pull their energy back to themselves, pull them into a place of feeling more grounded and balanced. That will be the natural response of a spiritually aware person. But for someone who isn't and someone who doesn't practice, you can actually feel really, really scattered. Like that can actually throw you out completely and make you feel really bad. Okay. So some of the energies that I've had, I've got at least one or two energy vampires in my family, not immediate family, extended. It is absolutely exhausting and I can handle it for a couple of hours. I do not always remember to energetically protect. When I do energetically protect, it's much better. When I don't remember, I do usually realize about an hour or two in, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm dying. I need to go and rest. And I'll just go and take space. I'll just breathe. I'll meditate. I'll read a book. I'll do something and I'll breathe and I'll recenter and then I'll come back and then I'll be fine. If I'm consciously working through it, that clearing can take 1 or 2 minutes. But I don't always do that. I normally just go and, do my own thing. But you can clear it quicker. You can kind of recenter yourself. You can reground yourself. You can come back into the situation and you can deal with these people much more easily. And when I am in the mindfulness state to do it, it is actually not that hard. If I forget, and these people are around me all the time, I definitely need to take space, recharge, remove what isn't mine, ground myself, clear my space, and then come back in. Okay. And then when I'm more mindful, the process, the experience is always much, much easier. So, again, for you, this will be showing up as feeling exhausted, drained, kind of even like emotionally bereft at the end of dealing with particular people. And it's usually one or two particular people. It's not everybody. You'll have some people that make you feel really energized and excited and happy after you've been around them. And there are a lot of people out there that are just going to make you feel like you want to go to bed for a week. If that's you, then this is relevant for you. Okay. So this is the real life situation. Okay, scenario number 6 is the crowded space overload. Okay, so shopping centers, airports, concerts, they'll often make people feel anxious and overwhelmed, even if nothing bad happens. Okay, because this is not about you per se, it's about your sensitivity to the things around you. So there's usually a huge mix of energies. And if you're sensitive, it's almost like walking through an energetic storm. If you are not mindful, if you are not grounded, if you are not aware of what you're stepping into, it's almost like you're walking into, like I said, like a big storm of emotions and energies. And you can kind of inadvertently pick up on all of this stuff, and then all of a sudden you're trying to process and think through and like deal with lots and lots and lots and lots of different thought forms and energies and emotions and feelings, and that in and of itself can cause anxiety. It's going to make you not want to do those things. You're not, maybe not going to want to go flying somewhere or go to concerts or go to spend time in crowded places. You may just decide to become a lot more introvert and spend time at home. But then you're also potentially missing out on all of these amazing experiences. So if that's you, if you do really struggle with crowded places, this is an energy problem. Okay. And this is something that you will need to work on. Okay. Now, number 7, we've kind of crossed this a little bit before with my friend and the story about her energy, but this is about the toxic work environment. So this is not just about the back-to-back meetings. This is not just about the people whose emotions and whatever that you can't balance and the masculine and the feminine. This is very specifically when you're in a toxic work environment and people are very deliberately trying to impact you. Okay, now it may not be conscious, but honestly, in a lot of work environments, if it's a toxic work environment and people are just primarily dealing with their egos and not their I am presences, right? They're personalities without ego. And this is probably most workplaces in most places in the world, right? So this is not an isolated problem. This is probably, the vast majority. But it becomes toxic when people use their ego or use their influence or don't become mindful of their own behavior and how they're showing up, and that will negatively impact you and how you are. Okay. Um, Even on good days, even when they're not in a bad place, it can still feel heavy, right? It can still feel really, really difficult. And that's something for you to pay attention to. Okay. Some workplaces are just energetically dense. They will often be filled with unspoken frustrations, stress, resentment, especially if the energy isn't cleared in the space, which, let's face it, unless you have an energy conscious person, no one's going to be doing that. And the denseness of it is actually really exhausting. So, paying attention to how dense and exhausting these things are can make a really big change. Okay. Scenario number 8 is the unexplained fatigue. Okay. You wake up tired, even after a full night's sleep, no matter how much you rest, you feel energetically off. Okay. So, sometimes that actually happens in the dream state. Sometimes when you're dreaming, you can accidentally pick up on stuff. That's happened to me before, where I've just been really, really, really exhausted and I've just had to kind of clear out whatever's happening to me in my dream state, and that can really help. But often it's also carrying old stagnant energy from past interactions, environments, people that you can't seem to shake off. And this is why having an energetic kind of routine every single day is extremely powerful, because it can help you to release those things that are not working for you. I had a situation the other night. I can't even remember what the scenario was, but I was actually quite irritated. And I don't often get irritated to the point where I can't sleep very well, but I was really irritated to the point where I was actually struggling to sleep. And I had to call back my fear and emotions around quite a lot of things um, based on the scenario. And then once I did that, probably took me 4 minutes, maybe. I slept like a baby. It was the most amazing thing. And I remember how powerful and important this energy work is, because ultimately, had I not done that, I could have been awake half the night and then that could have put me back days. Okay. So being mindful of the inability to sleep or waking up really tired, that's usually unresolved energetic stuff, emotions, and situations. So being able to play with that and heal that and clear that as you go is really important. Okay, scenario number 9 is the sudden mood shift. Okay, this happens all the time with people, all the time. Okay, if you are suddenly feeling good, but after being around someone, something, if you've been watching social media, if you've been doing something online, if you've been out and about in a shopping center, if you've been doing anything like that, and you go from feeling really good to really bad, you might have picked up energy without realizing it. And usually this change is like sudden, without any reason, without any explanation, and you don't understand why it's there. Okay. So that's something to be really mindful of. So usually we need to remember that energy is contagious. It does go through screens, right? It does. It does, because it's quantum, right? It's just energetically everywhere. So the potentiality is everywhere. If you're listening to it, if you're buying into the frequency of something, then you can accidentally pull it into your field and have that experience as if it's yours. So that sudden energy shift is super, super, super important to pay attention to. It happens especially with teenagers really, really often. And I think it's partly because of where their brain's at in terms of development, but also because they are much more sensitive to those things. And that is okay, but we need to be aware of it so that we can help ourselves energetically. Okay, so the sleepless nights, it's kind of like waking up really tired. It's kind of an extension of not being able to go to sleep. But typically, if you can't fall asleep, if you're waking up at 3 a.m. feeling breathless and uneasy, and something doesn't feel right, you've probably picked up some kind of energy. Okay, so again, external influences, lingering stress, unprocessed emotions. Typically, if you're feeling really anxious about these things, again, it's really important to call all of your energy and emotions back to you, because I do find that's really powerful. But outside of that, give yourself an opportunity to just clear your field out. Okay. So these are real life scenarios where your energy can absolutely be impacted, and it can make you feel really unwell or overwhelmed or anxious or tired or cranky or reactive or whatever it is. These real life scenarios happen all the time. And I just want you to be aware of yourself, right? When I go to a big concert, how do I feel afterwards? When I have dinner with these particular family members, how do I feel afterwards? When I go to this sporting event, how do I feel? Just pay attention, and start to get a pattern within your body, and in your awareness of, oh yeah, I've actually realized that when I do this every single Sunday after I've been at the sporting fields all day on the Saturday, I'm actually really exhausted. And I'm not just exhausted because I've been running around all day. I feel like I can't get off the couch, and I feel like there's something wrong with me. Okay. Now, very, 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 very occasionally, maybe, but honestly, it's probably an energy problem. Okay. So, really simple techniques: grounding, clearing your energy field, removing hooks, cords, and barbs from and ties from people, shoring up your energy field, allowing yourself to feel separate, calling your energy and emotions back, separating from emotions and energy from other people. All of those are really powerful and amazing techniques that you can do on a regular basis. If you want to learn more, jump into my Intuitive Mastery School. You can learn all about it. I have an energy clearing course called The Ultimate Collection of Energy Clearing Techniques. That's also really powerful because it has all of that in there. But also just give yourself a little bit of education on understanding what grounding is and what it takes and how different you might feel, and play with that for a week. Clear your energy field. Just give yourself the intention of letting go of stuff that doesn't belong to you, and see how you feel. This has to be something that makes you feel better, right? So when you're working with your energy, it's actually really important to experiment. Okay, like my friend, in her office environment, when she put all of those energy protections in place, she felt infinitely better. When I couldn't sleep the other day and I did some energy work, I felt infinitely better, and then I could sleep. So if you are walking around constantly anxious or overwhelmed, drained, exhausted, and any of those scenarios are calling out to you, I strongly invite you to pay attention and start getting interested in the energy of the situation, because this is a game changer. Okay, I hope that was really helpful. We did go through a lot of scenarios, but hopefully there was one or two that kind of, pricked your ears up and went, oh, yes, that could be me. And pay attention, look after yourself, and look after your energy. And I will see you next time.